I 37 male found out my GF 25 female cheated on me with my son 20 male and I want to cut them both off but they're begging me to forgive them both. Obligatory not my main. Throw away in case anyone I know sees my details. I was a young dad. Me and my now late wife had my son before we were even 17. She sadly died suddenly at 22 not long after we got married and I've been a single dad since. It's been tough, but I think up until this I did my best. I haven't had time to have any relationships really up until I met her. I threw myself into being a dad and concentrating on my business. I am not saying I've been a mug. Just not had anything serious. Never anyone serious enough to introduce my son to. But just under 3 years ago, I met AJ. I wasn't expecting it, but before long I was head over heels. The first 6 months or so was more casual, but when we realized we loved each other we made it official. I was even planning to ask her to marry me next month on her 26th birthday. I was even going to ask my son to be my best man. I didn't introduce them at first due to not being sure how he'd take it, so we waited a while. But after they met last year, we've all hung out and everything was all good. Granted this year they haven't seen each other much, due to lockdown and him being at uni, but I didn't think anything of that. I could see her much thus last month due to lockdown again. However, I've noticed as the past couple of weeks have gone on, she's been a bit quiet and moody. I've asked her and she outed down to being overwhelmed. Likewise I have noticed it in my son being a bit withdrawn, but I assumed he's been busy with uni. When I finally saw her again this weekend, I really noticed, so I called her out on it. She broke down and admitted she cheated on me. Just like that. I was shocked. So I was trying to get it out of her and she admitted it was with my son. Just before lockdown started in November she was out with her mates and she bumped into my son in the pub. They got pissed, shared a taxi, and ended up drunk and ducking. I basically threw her out there and then, saying I never want to see her again. She was begging me, pleading and making a scene and everything. I then asked my son to come over and I confronted him. He admitted it's true. It's a huge mistake and is begging me to forgive him. I've told him he needs to stay at someone's house and don't want to look at him anymore. He's at my mom's. I haven't told her what he did, but she knows it's serious seeing as how close we have always been. She's been ringing me, sending me emails, texting me begging for another chance, and so has my son. I've packed up her stuff that she left here and left it in her front garden in a bin bag. I've even chucked her Christmas presents I've got her too. Let her enjoy them early. I am absolutely distraught. They're the two people I loved most in the world. I wanted to marry her, maybe have kids, spend my life with her. Likewise, he was more than my son, he was my best friend. I sacrificed so much for him, to give him an amazing life, and they've both stabbed me in the back in the worst way. I don't think I'll ever forgive them ever again. They're welcome to each other as far as I'm concerned. I feel so hurt. Edit, I forgot to add. I've got myself booked in at the clap clinic. If I can't trust her to not cheat on me once, who knows how many times she's done it. Is there any more to do here, Reddit? Or is that the best course of action? Cut them off and move on. Edit, for everyone saying next time, there's going to be no next time. I am done with women. Love. Relationships, everything. Further edit, God, I miss my wife tonight. She should have been the one and only woman for me. They'll never make them like her again. Too long didn't read, girlfriend cheated with my son and came clean. I threw her out, told my son to leave, and I never want to see them again. Update. I wasn't planning to originally do an update because of so many abusive comments, texts received last time, but on the other hand I had so much support. I thought I'd update those who have been supportive. So I basically met up with AJ, my ex. I asked her the truth. What went on and was there anything else going on previously? She was really passionately saying no. It literally was a case of her having a drink with her mates and my son was in the pub and they got drunk together. When they were sharing a taxi, he admitted he liked her, made a pass, and that was it. She was saying things like she'd never ever do it normally, but because hadn't seen me for a little while and he reminded her of me so much that night. It just happened. I told her to stop blaming the booze or anyone else and she needs to own it. No one else. I also was honest with her that she's the first person I've let in love since my ex-wife died, and I've been happier with her in the past 3 years than I was for years before that. I told her I was even going to propose to her. She broke down, telling me again how sorry she is and asking me for another chance and that she'll never forgive herself. I told her she needs to one day so she can learn from this. But that's it for us. I am blocking her number, email, and I don't want any contact again, and I left. I feel much better for meeting her. As devastated as I am, I do feel like that's a bit of closure. Simply to see that I don't really hate her, but actually pity her through not being able to control her alcohol or keep it in her pants. It's cost her a relationship with someone she cares about and likely will affect her relationships for years to come. Not that I don't think she's any less responsible or deserves the outcome like. It also helped me to truly see how immature she is. Before this, I was blissfully ignorant because I was happy. Now, it's made me really conscious of it. Never again. Now my son. I realized the other day when I made my post. I was very angry and the way I was typing it seemed like it was going to flat out disown him. But let me stress, he's my son. My flesh and blood, and I love him dearly. He's also my wife's son, and I could never just get rid of him for her. But he has let me down and really hurt me massively, and I have lost not just all respect but trust in him. So I met him also and heard his side of the story. It was largely the same as hers. But the difference was he said she was being really flirty with him, and she said he really reminded her of me, and that's when he told her he had a crush and made his move. I told him what I wrote out above. That I love him but have no respect for him or can trust him anymore. I told him also about my plans. That I was going to propose to her and even have him as my best man. He was gutted, just really silent, and started crying. I told him we need to have no contact for a while. He needs to get a job and not work with me at weekends like he does at the moment, and we need to talk to my folks to see if he can stay with them for a bit. But in order to do so, I want him to be a grown-up and tell them why to their face and deal with it as a grown-up. So I drove him there and made him tell them. They were devastated, not just upset, but the look in my mom's eye, I'll never get over that. She told him how disappointed she was in him, and that she never thought he'd do something like this. I asked her if he can stay there for the foreseeable future but not for free. He has to pay his own way, proper board, contribute towards the bills, but his own food. She agreed out of respect for me. I also sat him down and shown him that I'd transferred over a large amount of money and explained that was the money I was saving for AJ's engagement ring, but seeing as what's happened, I want him to have that as a reminder and to use it to pay his grandparents' rent if no else. He was absolutely stunned at that. Trying to give it me back, I told him if he does that, we definitely are done. We've agreed on no contact at least until Christmas, and then we all me, him, my folks could spend Christmas together. I've been largely reflecting the past few days, mainly on me and why I went for AJ in the first place. I was extremely flattered when she asked me out, even though I'd never normally consider anyone that young. But in hindsight, she was same age as my wife when she died. Same ethnicity, mixed race, and also even did the same sort of job. So I guess I went for it because she was like my late wife, which honestly makes me really sad. I know I can't blame anyone else for that, but it makes me realize also that AJ was only my second ever serious relationship in my life. Like, imagine that a 37-year-old guy having that little relationships, that a girl 5 years older than my son is a huge chunk of my relationship experience. It also makes me miss my wife massively. I've been just having a bit of me time the past few days, having an Alan Partridge marathon that was mine and my wife's favorite thing to watch together. It helps me feel close to her when I am down. Edited to add, I am seeing if I can get in touch with my old therapist I was seeing after my wife died and making an appointment with him. I might see if he can take my son on too. Edit, a few people have pointed out we might not be able to see the same therapist due to a conflict of interest. I didn't think of that. So maybe I'll get a recommendation off him for someone else suitable, thank you. I definitely need to work on myself before I ever date again. I think I have too many issues to be a good partner at the moment. And if when I do, I am not dating anyone her age again. I think I'll do a strictly 80s policy of only going for people born in the 80s and definitely no one born after 1989. Thank you and apologies for the wall of text. Too long, didn't read. Confronted my son and ex. Cut contact with her and am having space from my son until at least Christmas. Working on myself and reflecting. I'm so sorry you have to live this. I really am. 1. Cut her off. She is not worthy of you. You sound like a really good man that anyone will be happy to spend the rest of her life with. 2. I know that you can't forgive your son. And you don't have to. You can tell him that even when he is still your son and you love him, he broke your trust, and your relationship from now on is going to be different. You are his father, but no longer his friend. And you will be there, but at the moment with the less contact possible. He has to find his own place and work. 3. Please go to counseling. It's going to be good for you. 4. Talk to someone you are close with. Let your feeling out of your chest. Don't get drunk. Eat healthy and drink water. Sending you a hug. Get rid of girlfriend. Stop supporting son. Tell grandma too. And let the little shit support himself. In a few years, I'm sure you'll want a relationship with your son. But you don't have to right now. He's an adult who made an adult choice and should have to live with the adult consequences. Second story. My 26 female friend, 27 male, admitted to sexually assaulting me 3 years ago. My friend and I were childhood friends that temporarily lost contact when we went to different high schools. Fast forward to when I was 23, I moved to a new city and saw him at a grocery store. He told me that he had moved there 2 years ago. We reconnected, exchanged numbers and made plans to hang out. Our hangouts became frequent as it was nice to have a familiar face in a new city, and I genuinely had fun hanging out with an old friend. One night I had a small disagreement on the phone with my best friend, 23 female at the time. Got annoyed and texted my friend to see if he wanted to hang out. We ended up going to a bar where I had way too many drinks, felt sick and then asked to be taken home. We got into an Uber and I remember him coming into my app with me, giving me some water and then asking if he could stay the night to make sure I was safe. I agreed but said that he should sleep on the couch. I remember falling into my bed fully clothed. Shortly after I woke up because I felt someone on top of me. I was still very drunk and groggy but immediately tried to push him off me and tell him to stop. He kept holding me down and going on anyway. I begged him to stop, telling him that I had a boyfriend back home who I loved very much. I'll never forget his response that your BF doesn't have to know, while he continued. I put all my effort into trying to get him off of me, but eventually my body gave up and I fell asleep again. The next morning, he was lying on my bed beside me despite our agreement the night before that he should sleep on the couch. I asked him what he was doing there and he says, I just wanted to make sure you were safe. I asked him to leave and then later texted him asking to tell me what happened last night because my memory only has little bits and pieces. He kept telling me that nothing happened. I told him what I remembered, me saying no, mentioning my BF, his response, etc. He insisted for days that I must have dreamt this because absolutely nothing happened. Needless to say, I cut him off immediately after. I never officially went to therapy for this, but I did talk to my psychologist cousin on and off about the incident. Never reported it either, as I just assumed it'd be his word against mine. So I unhealthily buried it in the back of my mind and had to suffer from occasional flashbacks, nightmares and self-doubt. Well, last night I got a call from an unknown number. It was him. He finally admitted to what he did that night, said that it was eating him inside and that he wants to apologize. He said that he remembered everything in full detail but was scared to tell me at the time. He was literally in tears begging for my forgiveness and saying that he wouldn't blame me if I report him to the police, though I am obviously not going to forgive him, especially in light of him making me believe I was imagining things for 3 years and making me doubt that it ever really happened. How do I move forward with this new information? Third story. My husband sabotaged the condom and I'm now pregnant with an unplanned 6th child. My husband, 37 male, and I, 34 female, have been married for 11 years. We currently have 5 kids, 10 male, 9 F, 6 male, 2 female, 2 male. We had agreed when we got married that we wanted 4 kids and that we wanted to be done having kids by our very early 30s. Me getting pregnant with fraternal twins was a surprise, and it was a very complicated birth that left me happy to leave pregnancy behind. My husband started complaining as our oldest approached middle school that this was all going by too fast, and in that, with the twins sharing a room and all the other kids having their own room, we had one empty bedroom in our house still. My husband opposed the fact that I was thinking about getting back on the IUD after my birth injuries down there have become a distant memory. My husband argued that we had plenty of money for another kid and we could hire a nanny if I wanted. So what's the big deal with an extra mouth to feed? That set off an argument because his late father had dragged him into running his various payday loan businesses on top of the wholesaling business my husband already had. And now it's like he's neck deep in this payday industry and the money is too good to leave. However, the next day he apologized and stopped bringing up kids. We were using condoms until I could get my IUD. One time when he thought I was in another room, I walked in on him tampering with a condom. I blew up at him and he said he only did it one other time a few nights prior. I didn't want our kids to know how mad I was, so I let him sleep in our bedroom, but he slept on the couch in the bedroom. The week of my period came and went. A week later I got 2 positive pregnancy tests and 2 days later my doctor confirmed my pregnancy. My husband cried and admitted that he had done it more than twice. Now I'm pregnant with a 6th child. My husband promised to get a vasectomy and I know abortion would devastate him, and despite all he's done I still care and am afraid about possibly traumatizing our kids if this abortion gets brought up later. What do I do? My husband refuses to get counseling because his stance won't change on wanting 6 kids. He also gets in arguments with people, even therapists, for not liking the loan industry he's in. Fourth story. On vacation and my wife is having sex with our family friend in front of me. My wife had news that a single male friend, we'll just call him L, of the family would be attending. To preface, we had a blow up early in our relationship, about 6 years ago, because I did not appreciate the energy my wife was giving this man. She was gazing and blushing and giddy. This guy is her brother's best friend. Since then we dropped the topic and L would occasionally be around for family functions. I didn't think anything of it and the feeling of anxiety dissipated. My wife explained that she was never really close to L in spite of knowing him for 20 years. L had dated my wife's female best friend and this put a wedge between my wife and L ever having the option for dating. I was comfortable with this separated dynamic. Well, this dynamic has changed. For the past few months my wife became closer to L after both attending a wedding 2 years ago. They'd message each other on social media on various occasions such as birthdays, holidays, and death remembrances, one before they had not. Fast forward to the family trip. My wife broke the news that he would be attending, in spite of this being a trip dedicated to a planned itinerary for 3 families with children. From day one I went downstairs and observed my wife sitting across the room with she and L facing one another. And she had an almost drunk, dazed, flirtatious look. When I approached her, she looked uncomfortable and caught. I told her I felt uncomfortable and she threatened to cause a scene. And that this is all based my own insecurity. The next day was the 4th of July. They played the I Ducky game all day and all night. No words spoken but just constantly looking and checking on each other. It was the worst day of my life and I know I wasn't imagining it. Towards the end of the night something inside me gave reassurance. I decided that I would not let it bother me. She's going to do it anyways and we still have several days stuck with him. I began to simply look away. Once I had this shift, my wife came and sat next to me and asked if everything was alright. I said sure. The next couple of days were very active for the group. And it seems they dropped the eye ducking game for whatever reason. I managed to get my wife away for a steak dinner and I chanced that maybe it was my own insecurities and imagination. Or maybe they both felt guilty or had a change of heart. But, as we attended a ball game, TGEI games began. This time I played it very cool. She asked me if everything is alright and I flipped it and said, "Why do you ask?" She could tell I noticed and she felt uncomfortable. When they kept on, I took the kids to get snacks and left them to it. When I came back, my wife and Elle stopped all duck games. On the drive back to her brother's, I held her hand and began to brainstorm on how I will pretend we have an actual relationship until I can get my finances, living situation, and the divorce plans in order. Too long didn't read my wife and I hit a low spot. She is flirting with a friend of the family and someone who will forever be around. My question is, am I doing the right thing? Thank you. Edit. We also have 2 adopted children whose lives will be affected even further by this adultery. Update. The original post to this saga reached its maximum allowable replies, but I would like to see some opinions on this matter before moving forward. It's been 3 weeks since the incident. I have reviewed the comments from my previous post and considered the worst criticisms of myself. However, I did make mental, legal, and monetary preparations just in case. The following were the most popular criticisms. I appear to be jealous and or insecure because I have such a bad reaction to seeing my wife having extraordinary nonverbal charisma with a close friend of the family. That this entire incident could be based on delusion or projection because of the fact I cheated 6 years ago and we discussed this before we married. Our therapist has so far deemed this as my own irrational experience. I ducking her brother's best friend isn't worthy of divorce. There's no such thing as I ducking, in which case you're not experienced, because there definitely is. You deserve to be disrespected because you cheated first. Doesn't matter how long ago, or whether or not you repeated the mistake. Let's look at the facts. One of our first arguments was very early in our relationship. Based on that, I did not appreciate the energy my wife was giving Elle at a breakfast function. Later Elle would attend family get-together. And my feelings, my wife's attention to him dissipated over time. I even played board games and went to the gym with Elle and brother-in-law on a couple of occasions. My wife and Elle had no online activity, never liked each other's posts, etc. As my wife stated, she was never close to Elle because Elle was a jerk when he dated her best friend. My wife met with her brother's best friend, we can call him Elle, to attend Elle's sister's wedding 2 years ago. There was only one invitation for her. She spent the night out. I thought nothing of it. A year ago or so my wife became exponentially distant. My wife and Elle became active on social media, liking posts and messaging each other on innocuous occasions such as birthdays, Mother's Day, death remembrances, etc. 6 months ago my wife began to exhibit extreme behavioral changes, or what most would consider to be red flags for cheating spouse. I checked her Apple Watch randomly 5 months ago and discovered a text to her female friends stating she would hook up with someone if I was unable to attend this year's family vacation. I immediately sought couples counseling. 4 months ago, she has news for me that Elle would unexpectedly be attending, that she had nothing to do with it, because her cousin invited him. Her brothers and host of the event did not invite. 1 month ago, I lovingly told my wife that I feel Elle is attending for her sake, and I could be wrong but I feel discomfort. My wife told me that she wants me to feel discomfort, and will not validate me. The trip, day 1. Elle brought a Bluetooth speaker and played Your Man Don't Deserve You type songs, as they were locked eyes in what appeared to be a drunk-like flirtatious state. I immediately told my wife I felt uncomfortable. Day 1. Wife told me that if I said anything she will cause a scene and tell everyone I am insecure. Day 2. 4th of July. They appeared to never let one another out of their sight, checking in almost every minute, all day and all night. Day 3 and 4. We attended a water park and they left each other alone as far as I could tell, but I was busy with the kids for a good portion. Day 5. Night. My wife told me in an odd and robotic tone that she is going downstairs where Elle might see her to grab the tablet charger and some milk. Upon her return I noticed she wore a flimsy t-shirt which barely covered half of her ass, and no bra or underwear. I asked, why no underwear, and she said she only had 2 clean pair left. We also had access to laundry which we used later in the trip. Day 6. Baseball game. They begin starting at each other. Is there something I am missing here? Are these not clearly red flags by anyone's standards? Or am I possibly just delusional? Or is it a little bit of both my insecurities and her behaving promiscuous? Hit like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing to our channel.